I apologize.
Yeah. I was wondering why. Like, do you have me muted? Because like I was like saying it and like anyway, whatever. Because one, yes, the secular media has been running with it. Two, it was leaked by someone literally part of that bishop's council. Three, James Martin's running with it. Four, New Ways Ministry is running with it. And five, LGBTQ Catholic is fucking running with it as well.
Yeah, but so
So
I
here's
don't
the
think it's
thing.
ever the
What's going on is what you don't get, Ramon, is what's going
yeah.
on is fucking damage control. Because there is something new here, because I've read Father James Martin's statement, and like, you know
Mhm.
what? It does kind of make sense. It could be considered something new because nowhere has this been articulated in this way. So it's a very minutia, right? They're trying to make a distinction between deep-seated homosexual tendencies and transitory homosexual tendencies, which is a complete
so but
fucking cope.
so you're
So
saying the Vatican? Go ahead.
technically speaking, right? The document itself, because James Martin apparently he's read it, and so it's gonna allow for those with quote unquote transitory homosexual tendencies.
Was that even mean?
That's the
Like
there.
that might possibly be permissible depending upon what that actually means.
So Bismo,
So
you're saying
the issue is in 2005, I believe, he said a seminary must not show any homosexual like practice 3 years prior to the ordination to the diaconate.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, the technicality of this is a seminarian will usually spend like 4 years in the seminary total as part of like their graduate program
Yeah.
because it's just a master's in divinity course and with church ecclesiology, but it takes 4 years about. You can take like 2 to 3 years before that if that person doesn't have any familiarity with philosophy, but you're usually, if it's a 4 year program, they're ordained like literally the third year, so the like
Hmm.
1 year before
Yeah, it's
ordination.
dependent upon the order, but yeah.
So the technicality of that is that if Benedict gave a hard line, no homosexual practices 3 years before the aconate, which means that they either aren't engaged in homosexual practices right before they enter the seminary, or if it's any later than that, any homosexual practices, then they have to get kicked out immediately. That's the
Well,
context
yeah,
that Benedict and technicality that he was trying to drive about that whole transitory homosexual tendency.
yeah. That's why it's so important to define it in the actual document because, I mean, that's good. That's the contingency, right? Whether this could be viewed as correct or not, or dubious, I should say. I mean, not really factually correct.
The thing is the document itself has not yet been released publicly. It's
Yeah.
it's it's a working document, right? And the person who leaked it is within that bishop's conference.
I mean, yeah. That's why I would just wait. Don't formulate any opinions just yet. Yeah.
I mean, to be
Um.
to, to be quite honest, right now, it's a huge issue right now in Italy as well. And
It
like,
is.
yeah, the president came out like what, a couple days or yesterday, last night or whatever, to try to say, oh
Mm.
no, the document itself includes a reiteration of like Pope Benedict's prior statement on the issue that homosexuals were deep seated. And then, like, in over in Italian Twitter, someone's like, "Yeah, but it also says that it literally says that those are transitory homosexual tendencies can be admitted." So it's like,
Wait. So I'm a
so
little
so
bit
I mean
confused here.
that's the thing, like
Yeah.
remote, like, I mean, you're not wrong. They haven't released it yet. We have to see the primary source, but when the president of the Italian Bishops Conference comes out and says that no, those are fake news because we reiterated the same rule that Pope Benedict said, but he didn't clarify that they're going to allow for transitory homosexual tendencies in, then what do you think they're covering up?
I mean, I think they might just be making the same mistake that the recent church has been making multiple times. It's just a matter of imprudence, meaning ambiguous wording. You know.
I think it's weaponized ambiguity.
Sorry, could you repeat that? You think it's weaponized and what?
It's weaponized ambiguity.
What do you mean?
Means that they're being ambiguous. So here's a plan and program. They already know they can't come out and explicitly say that they can't allow homosexual people, homosexuals to ordination. But what they're going to do is they're going to create another distinction, right? Like a virtual distinction, basically, and say, oh, it's transitory homosexual tendencies.
Yeah, but
You
that's
can't
not a
admit that
baseless
because it's
distinction, though.
not deep seated, right? But that's pointless. It's a
Why?
virtual distinction. It's not a real distinction. But that's what
So?
Jesuits like to do. Is Jesuit casuistry.
Well, I mean, would you agree that if a desire... Well,
Here,
no.
no,
I mean,
I
I'm
don't
not
agree. I
asking you
don't agree. Here,
positive. No. Just wait for the
okay, go
question
ahead.
for a second. Um, would you agree that there is a distinction in reality? Meaning, like, not meaning real, but just that it's not baseless between dormant desires and active desires?
No, I think once if you've sucked one dick, you've sucked all dicks.
Well, I mean, that's kind of missing the mark in my question. It's kind of like circumventing it for a
No, so
specific purpose.
so I think the deep-seated homosexual tendencies is the same thing as transitory homosexual tendencies.
Yeah, but why?
Because in Christian anthropology, your sexuality is intrinsic to who you are as a person.
Oh, is that okay? Yeah. I mean, if that's the official theological position, then yeah.
So people with homosexual inclinations, as is stated, not defined but stated in the CCC, people with homosexual inclinations are objectively disordered.
Yeah, but let me ask, does that also apply to other disordered tendencies of the same nature?
When it
Like,
comes to when it comes
yeah,
to Catholic moral analysis, all sexual sins are considered like the same objectively, meaning that
including
masturbation
fornication
is
and
all
yeah, okay.
yeah, yeah.
Well, if they're all considered the same, and thus them being intrinsic to yourself, then I feel as though the distinction between desire being dormant and active is warranted here, and I don't think it's
I don't
baseless
think
if
it,
that's
no,
what's being conveyed
I
in the
think it's a
document.
virtue. You see, now that's the thing. You're on the same road as a
Well,
Jesuit
why is it being
casuist.
like a distinction of concepts bad though
Because
in
it
that
becomes a virtual
situation?
distinction for you to say that it's something that's not done in practice, therefore they're not a homosexual.
Oh well, no, I wouldn't say that they're not a homosexual. Still, that's not what I
So
would
then,
say.
okay, so then, how are you distinguishing between inactive homosexuality and deep-seated homosexuality?
Um, well, I mean, just how any other desire is assessed in the same manner. Take, for example, whether it's been thought of, or in other words, whether it's been active, as I said before,
Can you
whether that be in practice or just in contemplation, as I said
do you
before.
not see how you're creating more and more virtual distinction and it just never stops? I'm not
Well,
like
yeah,
pinning
but
this
why
on
is it
you
bad,
because
though?
we're just having this dialogue, right? We're trying to like
No,
flesh
no,
it
I
out.
know, I know. Yeah, yeah, I know.
But you see that this is what Jesuits do, man. It's called casuistry for a reason. It's when you make a virtual distinction in a moral analysis and then you try to justify there being a real quote unquote distinction and you're just
Okay, then
speculating.
can I ask you like an
Go ahead.
unrelated? Well, I mean, this is a
Well,
related question,
I
but
have things to say. I want to return back to it, but yeah, go ahead. Sure.
um, so what do you think of Saint Alphonsus's moral theology? I mean, his books, like the work called Moral Theology, because
Yeah.
this is what he does. Like, it's the same analysis.
No.
Um,
So in the church's moral analysis, it's the object, circumstances, and intention. That's what we get from Alphonsus Liguori. He also does clarify that a quote unquote law or a rule, whether it applies to canon or civil law, that cannot be enforced cannot be considered a law. And he's just repeating St. Thomas on that point.
Okay. Yeah, but what's his method? Like, I mean, from what I've read in his work, I mean, it seems like quite similar methodology. Like, what's different in terms of the methodology?
I mean, what do you think is different in terms of methodology? Again, it's the action, circumstances, and intentionality. I mean, if any one of those three is not
Yeah,
good, I should
yeah,
say, then it's not a moral action.
yeah, but relate that back to like the discussion at hand. So in
How do
that
you think how do you think
methodological,
Catholic moral
yeah,
analysis applies in this case?
that's
Because that's the
that's a
thing,
pretty
Ramon.
broad question.
That's the
Yeah.
thing. People who want to make well that right, but why are you asking me that question? You would only ask me that question
Well,
if you
because
were in
you're
search. No,
faulting.
no. If you no, if you were in
Yeah.
search of a real distinction where it's merely a virtual distinction, because that's the point that I want to return to, then it's on you to show that through Catholic moral analysis that it can be justified as a real distinction. Do you see what I mean?
Well, why
So,
does it
so,
have
so
to
it's a
be a
right,
real
but
distinction,
what you're
though?
gonna do is you're gonna presuppose that it is a real distinction, therefore it can be considered morally.
Well, I wouldn't
So,
presuppose
but
anything. I
first
mean,
we
I would
have
just
to
ask
right,
you.
but
Yeah,
right. So this is
yeah,
trying to want to get at because
yeah.
if you want to consider it to be something that is moral in nature, like an actionable in nature, then you first have to establish that it's subjective. And how do you do that? You have to presuppose that it's a real distinction. So that's why the question about is it a virtual distinction or a real distinction, the metaphysical question matters more than prior to the moral analysis. That's a problem with Jesuit casuistry. And so that's why a lot of the points of Jesuit casuistry that have been, anathematized prior, I forget by which pope, um, attack those same virtual distinctions.
Um.
Like
Okay, so I'll be. Yeah.
Neotomism doesn't apply to most traditional Thomisms. Neotomism that's anathematized by most of the popes usually
I don't
applies to
know
the
anything
Jesuit
about that.
theses.
I don't know anything about
So
neo-Thomism.
Neotomism in some ways leads to like an equal ultimacy in like the worst sense of it, right? Where you can't distinguish between the will of God and God's will in terms of like those who are predestined. But
Um,
anyways, that's a little bit.
okay.
This is a little bit too far afield, right? We'd have to like kind of go through like, you know, each justification for the will of God, and this is part of like the huge conversation between like, the Jesuits are saying there's like some middle fucking knowledge that's involved here, right? That stops it from being
Yeah,
like a
but yeah,
predestination,
that
and then
seems
the
like a much
Molinists like
different
literally argue with them
conversation.
that you can't, that's just merely a virtual distinction, is not a real distinction. That's what the whole freaking conversation's about, like back in the Middle Ages, right? And the Pope
Well, I
really
mean,
never gave a
actually,
clarification in this debate.
that was reunited at Vatican II. Fun fact.
What was
But
reunited?
Bismo,
like the
I have
predestination debate, it was reunited. But Vatican II
Reunited?
never like yeah between
Yeah.
Molinists and Thomists. But that
No,
was never
why are you
discussed.
why are
I
you
mean,
saying Molinists and Thomists? You mean Molinists and Banianists. Sorry, my bad.
yeah. I mean, if
so
that's the case, yeah, I don't really study the history of the debates
They're both
concerning
claiming to be
predestination.
Thomists, right? Molina is a Jesuit. Banyan is a Dominican.
Okay. Well, yeah,
if I
okay.
get,
Back on topic though. Back on, like you
if
said.
I get into oh geez,
I have an article. Sorry, like I I I know we're just talking this out. Like I'm not agitated in any way, but I do get pretty passionate about this because just this is something that back in my younger years I did study this a lot, and it influenced a lot of the way that I think about these issues.
I mean, it's okay.
One second.
I mean, again, like you said, it's just a discussion. This isn't a debate or anything.
could I speak?
Sure.
So kind of what's going on with the whole gay shit in the Vatican? Like, so we allowing gay priests in now?
Oh, I mean, they've always been
Technically, yes.
allowed. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Technically, yes.
yeah. They've always been
If I
allowed.
thought,
It's just like in recent years, it's been heavily discouraged. Like it was starting off with Pope Saint John the 23rd, and then as Abismo brought up Pope Benedict recently.
do you
Yeah.
think that we should be trying to stop gay priests from joining?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Uh, I don't think that the church has reached apostasy yet. Like dogmatic or doctrinal apostasy, I mean.
No, it's just been a bunch of ambiguous and imprudent statements. They're not even technically like doctrinally incorrect. It's just
Yep.
there's this unnecessary need for clarification of terms when there shouldn't be.
Right. It's a virtual distinction.
So I have a question. I mean, I'm learning more about the problems of Eastern Orthodoxy. The thing is that I just learned is they're having the same issue in their churches. They just cover it up more with their patriarchs and all that stuff.
I don't think that it's they like actively try to cover it up more. I think it just appears to be that way since we live in the West. So the Catholic Church is going to be covered naturally a lot more than Eastern traditions. So
Nobody. Yeah.
Uh,
Nobody cares about Greek Orthodox.
yeah, nobody really does.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even like heard of until like a few years ago online, at least.
the
Oh,
Orthodox are annoying with the filioque and all that stuff. They are
the
obsessed.
filioque debate is over since Vatican II.
I
Yeah.
mean, I would say it's been over since Florence, to be honest.
Yeah. No. I mean that is definitely the most fair point.
Yeah.